The mist parts like ancient curtains as you approach the gatefront ruins, and there she stands, a mysterious maiden in a dark cloak, her face obscured by shadow, her presence somehow both comforting and otherworldly. Melina extends her hand, offering not just an accord, but something far more precious, a delicate ring of intricate goldwork, a whistle that will summon a companion unlike any other. As you blow into it for the first time, the very air shimmers with spectral light, and from the ethereal void emerges Torrent, a creature of grace and loyalty, with curved horns that spiral toward forgotten skies and eyes that hold the weight of countless journeys. Welcome, lore seekers, to another deep dive. With Keen 7 lore, where today we're unraveling one of Elden Ring's most compelling mysteries, a question that has haunted the community since the game's release and remains tantalizingly unanswered even after the shadow of the Erdtree expansion. Who was Torrent's former master? This spectral steed, your most faithful companion throughout the lands between, carries secrets in every ghostly hoofbeat, connections to the game's most pivotal characters woven into his very existence. You see, Torrent isn't merely a mount, a convenient gameplay mechanic dressed in lore. He's a kingmaker, a chooser of champions, a being with agency and history that predates your arrival in the lands between by an unknowable span. When Melina grants you that spectral steed whistle, she doesn't command Torrent to serve you. She reveals that Torrent has chosen you. Think about that for a moment. In a world where gods manipulate mortals like pieces on a board, where the greater will imposes its design through golden order and burning Erdtrees, here's a spectral horse exercising free will, selecting who is worthy to ride toward lordship. The implications ripple outward like disturbed water in a moonlit pool. Someone rode Torrent before you, someone significant enough that when they could no longer fulfill their purpose, they entrusted specific individuals, Melina with the whistle, Ranni the witch with the spirit-calling bell, to find and aid Torrent's next chosen rider. This former master understood Torrent's importance, knew that the spectral steed would play a crucial role in whatever was to come. They made arrangements, set pieces in motion, ensured that when the time came, Torrent would find his way to the right tarnished. But here's where the mystery deepens into something approaching conspiracy. Despite Torrent's central importance to your journey, despite his connections to major players like Melina and Ranni, the game never explicitly reveals who his former master was. From software, masters of environmental storytelling and hidden lore left this particular thread dangling. Or did they? Because scattered throughout the lands between, in item descriptions and character dialogues, in promotional artwork and community discoveries, lie pieces of a puzzle that might just reveal the truth. What we know for certain paints a fascinating picture. Before your fateful meeting at Gatefront, Torrent travelled with Melina, though she makes it clear she isn't his former master. She's merely been entrusted with him, a temporary guardian, until the right person arrives. The spectral steed whistle she gives you is described as delicate gold work, crafted with a level of artistry that speaks to its importance. This isn't some hastily made trinket, but a carefully wrought artifact meant to bind rider and mount across the boundaries of death itself. Even more intriguing is Ranni's involvement. If you miss Melina at Gatefront, or simply explore before meeting her, you might encounter Ranni at the Church of Ella, disguised and calling herself Renna. She gifts you the spirit-calling bell and the lone wolf ashes, claiming she does so on behalf of Torrent's former master. Consider the weight of this revelation. Torrent's previous rider had enough foresight to arrange multiple contingencies, ensuring that whoever Torrent chose next would have the tools necessary for their journey. The spirit-calling bell isn't just useful, It's essential for summoning spectral allies throughout your quest. Torrent's former master understood you would need more than just a mount to succeed. The relationship between these gift-givers raises questions that echo through the game's deepest lore. Why would Torrent's former master trust both Melina and Ranni? These aren't random NPCs, but pivotal figures in the game's narrative. Melina, born at the foot of the Erdtree, carries her own mysterious purpose and connection to the Gloam-Eyed Queen. Ranni, orchestrator of the Night of Black Knives, defier of the greater will, walking her dark path toward an age of stars. That Torrent's former master had connections to both suggests someone operating at the highest levels of cosmic significance. If you're enjoying this deep dive so far, I'd genuinely appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. It makes a real difference in helping this video reach fellow lore enthusiasts through YouTube's algorithm. Your support means everything and helps keep these in-depth explorations coming. Now, let's talk about what sent the community into an absolute frenzy. That promotional image for Shadow of the Erdtree. When From Software released the key art for their DLC, eagle-eyed fans immediately noticed something extraordinary. There, riding what appeared to be Torrent through a field of spectral graves, was a figure with long flowing golden hair, dressed in clothing that seemed both regal and ethereal. The resemblance to Miquella was unmistakable, and suddenly a theory that had been percolating in the community crystallized into something approaching certainty. Miquella, the unalloyed, eternal child of Marika and Radagon, cursed with perpetual youth, but blessed with intelligence and compassion that surpassed his siblings. Here was a demigod who sought to create his own order, the Erdtree serving as an alternative to the Erdtree, a sanctuary for those spurned by the Golden Order. His needle could ward off the influence of outer gods. His presence could charm the most hardened warriors into devoted followers. If anyone among the demigods would form a bond with a spectral steed, wouldn't it be Miquella? The evidence seemed compelling. The spectral steed whistle's description mentions delicate gold work, and who was more associated with refined craftsmanship than Miquella, creator of unalloyed gold? The statue depicting a figure with 3 wolves, the same statue where you find the lone wolf ashes, bears an uncanny resemblance to depictions of Miquella elsewhere in the game. The figure is youthful, almost childlike, surrounded by wolves in a scene that speaks to gentleness rather than dominion. But then the DLC released, and something strange happened. Or rather, didn't happen. Despite that promotional artwork, despite the seeming setup, Shadow of the Erdtree never explicitly confirms Miquella as Torrent's former master. We journey through the land of shadow, uncover Miquella's transformation, witness his ascension attempt, learn about his relationship with Radahn and his abandonment of everything that made him who he was, but Torrent's connection remains unspoken. This silence speaks volumes about From Software's approach to storytelling. They showed us Miquella on Torrent, put it in their marketing, made it undeniable, and then refused to address it directly in the game itself. It's as if they're saying, yes, you see correctly, but the full truth is yours to piece together. The promotional art becomes canon through implication rather than exposition, a masterstroke of environmental storytelling that extends beyond the game into the real world. If you're finding value in this exploration so far, consider subscribing to support the channel and join our growing community of lore enthusiasts. Your support truly makes these deep investigations possible. Yet Miquella isn't the only candidate for Torrent's former master, and perhaps the most compelling alternative comes from examining who else came close to achieving what you, the Tarnished, ultimately attempt. Enter Vyke, Knight of the Round Table Hold, the Tarnished who came closer to becoming Elden Lord than any before you. His story is one of triumph turned to tragedy, love corrupted by madness, and it might just hold the key to understanding Torrent's past. Vyke's credentials are impressive. He was the only tarnished to ever claim 2 great runes and stand on the threshold of the Erdtree, ready to claim the throne. The finger readers speak of him with a mixture of awe and sorrow, describing how he nearly achieved what seemed impossible. But something stopped him. Or rather, someone. Vyke had something most tarnished lack. A finger maiden who survived long enough to truly matter to him. Someone he apparently loved. The evidence for their relationship lies scattered across the lands, between like fragments of a shattered mirror. At the Church of Inhibition, you find a dead maiden, and when you touch her, you're invaded by festering fingerprint Vyke, not the frenzied flame version you meet in the Lord Contender's Evergaol, but Vyke as he was before his fall, still wearing his legendary armor, still fighting with the determination that nearly made him Elden Lord. The maiden's presence here, Vyke's protective rage when you disturb her, it tells a story of love and loss. But here's where it gets interesting. Vyke's armor, when you finally claim it, reveals burn marks that tell of his embrace of the frenzied flame. The description makes it clear. Vyke accepted the flame to spare his maiden from becoming kindling. He chose madness over losing her, abandoned his quest for lordship to save the one person who mattered to him. It's exactly the kind of tragic choice that defines Elden Ring's narrative. Sacrifice the world to save what you love, or sacrifice what you love to save the world. If Vyke was Torrent's former master, it would explain so much. A tarnished on the path to lordship would need a spectral steed. Someone who nearly succeeded would understand what tools the next candidate would require, hence the arrangements with Melina and Ranni. And when Vyke fell to frenzy, when he abandoned his quest, Torrent would need a new rider. The timeline fits, the narrative parallels resonate, and it would create a beautiful symmetry, you succeeding. Where Vyke failed, riding the same steed that once carried him toward destiny. Yet problems persist with this theory. Would someone consumed by the frenzied flame, even to save another, maintain enough clarity to make arrangements for Torrent's future? The frenzied flame seeks to burn everything away, to return the world to primordial chaos. It seems antithetical to the careful planning evident in ensuring Torrent found his next rider. Unless, and this is where speculation builds upon speculation, Vyke made these arrangements before his fall, sensing the danger approaching, preparing for the possibility of his failure. There's another theory, one that reaches into the highest echelons of power and suggests a conspiracy that spans the entire narrative. What if Torrent's former master was Queen Marika herself? Not Marika as she appears in the game's present, imprisoned within the Erdtree, but Marika in her full power, orchestrating events from behind the scenes, even as she planned her own rebellion against the greater will. The evidence for Marika's involvement requires us to understand her as more than just the vessel of the Elden Ring. She was a schemer, a planner, someone who set events in motion that would culminate generations later. She removed the rune of death, orchestrated the Night of Black Knives through her connection to the Black Knife assassins, and ultimately shattered the Elden Ring itself. Every action shows someone playing a game whose rules and objectives only she fully understood. Consider Torrent in this context, a spectral steed who can traverse the boundaries between life and death, who remains unaffected by the shattering of the ring, who maintains his loyalty regardless of which ending you choose, except notably the frenzied flame, which would undo Marika's world entirely. Torrent seems designed to ensure someone could navigate the lands between after the shattering, could reach places otherwise inaccessible, could ultimately challenge the established order. If Marika was Torrent's master, her entrusting him to Melina makes perfect sense. Melina is almost certainly Marika's daughter, born at the foot of the Erdtree, with a purpose given by her mother. That purpose, to burn the Erdtree, aligns with Marika's rebellion against the greater will. Melina carries Torrent until she finds someone capable of achieving what Marika set in motion: the transformation or destruction of the Golden Order. The connection to Ranni adds another layer. Ranni is Marika's stepdaughter through Radagon, and their relationship is complex. Ranni orchestrated the Night of Black Knives with Marika's implicit involvement. The Black Knife assassins were new men, Marika's own people, and their ability to kill Godwyn required access to the Rune of Death that Marika had removed. If Marika trusted Ranni enough to involve her in such a crucial event, entrusting her with the spirit calling bell makes sense. This theory transforms Torrent from a helpful companion into a crucial piece of Marika's grand design. Every gallop across the lands between, every impossible leap that carries you to hidden locations, every moment Torrent enables your progress, all of it serves Marika's ultimate goal of breaking free from the greater will's influence. You're not just riding a horse, you're riding Marika's intention made manifest. But the rabbit hole goes deeper still. Some in the community have noted strange connections between Torrent and the Shadowbound beasts that serve Empyreans. Blythe serves Ranni, Malekith served Marika. Could Torrent be a unique form of Shadowbound beast? One whose nature as a spectral being allows him to survive the death or transformation of his master and choose another. The characteristics align intriguingly. Shadowbound beasts are gifted by the Two Fingers to control and protect Empyreans. But they're also more than simple servants. They have their own will, their own loyalties that can conflict with their ordained purpose. Blade struggles against his nature when Ranni defies the greater will. Malekith bears the guilt of his perceived failure to protect Marika. These aren't mindless servants, but complex beings navigating impossible loyalties. Torrent choosing his riders rather than being commanded fits this pattern. If he was originally bound to an Empyrean who died or transformed beyond recognition, his spectral nature might allow him to persist and select new companions based on his own judgment. This would make every Tarnished who rides Torrent a potential successor to an Empyrean's legacy, carrying forward a purpose even they might not fully understand. The Land of Shadow provides curious supporting evidence for deeper connections. In the promotional materials, Miquella rides Torrent through this realm, a place that exists in the shadow of the Erdtree, hidden from the lands between. How would Torrent know how to navigate such a place unless he'd been there before? The spectral steed's ability to appear and disappear, to survive attacks that would kill any normal mount, suggests a nature that transcends the physical world. Some have even suggested connections to the ancestral followers and their spiritual realm. The ancestral spirits you fight exist in a space between life and death, and their followers worship a form of spirituality that predates the Golden Order. Torrent's spectral nature, his horns that resemble those of the ancestral followers' own mounts, his ability to leap impossible distances, all of it hints at connections to this older, more primal form of spirituality. There's something poetic about this interpretation. The Golden Order sought to impose rigid structure on the world, to categorize and control every aspect of existence. But Torrent represents something older, freer, a spirit that chooses its own path, that exists outside the boundaries the Golden Order tried to establish. His former master, whether Miquella, Vyke, Marika, or someone else entirely, understood this and trusted Torrent's judgment above the dictates of gods and fingers. The Gloam-Eyed Queen presents another fascinating possibility, though one shrouded in even more mystery. This figure, who once wielded destined death before Malekith defeated her and sealed it away, represents one of the few powers that truly challenged Marika's order. Some believe Melina is the Gloam-Eyed Queen, or at least connected to her, which would create an intricate web of connections around Torrent. If the Gloam-Eyed Queen was Torrent's master, it would explain his spectral nature. Who better to command a creature that exists between life and death than the former wielder of destined death itself? It would also explain why Torrent can carry you through battles against beings who should be able to obliterate him. He's already touched by death in a way that makes him immune to it. The community has spent countless hours analysing every frame of that Shadow of the Erdtree promotional image, comparing the rider's posture, clothing, and hair to every known character in the game. Some point out details others miss. The way the rider's hand rests on Torrent's neck suggests familiarity and affection, not mere utility. The background shows what appears to be graves or memorial stones, perhaps indicating this image captures a moment of mourning or remembrance. What if the image doesn't show Torrent's past, but a moment that transcends time? Elden Ring plays with concepts of time and causality. The Erdtree exists across multiple timelines. The lands between themselves seem caught in cycles of death and rebirth. Perhaps Miquella riding Torrent is simultaneously past, present, and future. A moment that exists outside linear time, representing not historical fact, but mythological truth. The fact that From Software chose to never explicitly answer this question in the DLC speaks to their philosophy of storytelling. They understand that some mysteries are more powerful when left unsolved, that the community's theories and discussions create a living mythology around their games. By showing us Miquella on Torrent, but never confirming it in dialogue or item descriptions, they've created a puzzle that exists partially in the game and partially in our collective imagination. This approach frustrates some players who want clear answers, but it's precisely what makes From Software's worlds feel alive. Real mythology doesn't offer complete explanations for every mystery. Ancient texts contradict each other. Archaeological evidence supports multiple interpretations, and sometimes the truth is lost to time. By embracing this ambiguity, Elden Ring achieves something remarkable. It feels like a real mythology, complete with scholarly debates and competing theories. Think about what we actually witness in the game regarding Torrent's behavior and abilities. He appears and disappears at will, suggesting a mastery over spiritual manifestation that goes beyond simple summoning. He can be killed in battle, but returns with the consumption of a flask of crimson tears, not healing him, but literally resurrecting him. He shows affection and trust, nuzzling your hand, expressing personality beyond that of a mere mount. Most tellingly, Torrent abandons you if you inherit the Frenzied flame. This isn't a gameplay limitation, but a lore statement. Torrent has boundaries, principles, a point beyond which he will not go. The Frenzied flame represents the annihilation of all distinction, the return to primordial chaos where nothing exists as separate entities. Torrent, whose very existence depends on the boundaries between physical and spiritual, cannot abide this ending. This refusal provides crucial insight into his former master's identity. Whoever rode Torrent before wouldn't have been aligned with the Frenzied Flame's goals. This potentially eliminates certain candidates while strengthening others. Miquella sought to create order through compassion. Vyke only turned to frenzy as a last resort. Marika rebelled against one order to potentially establish another. All of these align with Torrent's apparent values. The narrative significance of Torrent's former master extends beyond mere lore curiosity. This mystery encapsulates one of Elden Ring's central themes, the weight of inheritance. You inherit a broken world, a shattered ring, a throne empty of legitimate claimants. But you also inherit tools, allies, and companions from those who came before. Torrent is perhaps the most personal inheritance, not a weapon or spell, but a living companion who chose to continue his journey with you. Every great mythology has its kingmaker figure. Merlin guiding Arthur, the sword in the stone choosing the rightful king, the oracle proclaiming the chosen one. Torrent fills this role in Elden Ring, but with a twist. He's already chosen once before and seen that choice fail or end. His selection of you carries the weight of experience, perhaps even disappointment. When Melina says Torrent has chosen you, she's saying he's willing to try again, despite whatever happened with his former master. The promotional image gains new meaning in this context. Miquella riding Torrent through a field of graves might represent not just the past, but the burden of failed attempts. Each grave could mark a tarnished who tried and failed, a potential Elden Lord who fell short. Torrent has witnessed these failures, carried riders toward both glory and doom, and still chooses to bear another into battle. This interpretation transforms your relationship with Torrent from simple gameplay convenience into something profound. Every time you summon him, you're continuing a legacy that stretches back through failure and loss. Every leap across an impossible chasm is an act of faith, not just your faith in Torrent, but his faith in you, his belief that perhaps this time, with this tarnished, things will be different. The various theories about Torrent's former master each offer different perspectives on this relationship. If it was Miquella, then Torrent carries the legacy of compassion and the dream of a gentler world. If Vyke, then Torrent knows the weight of love and sacrifice, the price of choosing personal connection over cosmic duty. If Marika, then Torrent is an agent of rebellion, a tool of liberation from divine oppression. But perhaps the most radical theory is that Torrent has had multiple former masters, that his spectral nature allows him to persist through generations of riders. What if the promotional image shows just one of many riders throughout history? This would make Torrent not just a companion, but a witness to the entire history of the lands between, carrying memories and knowledge accumulated across centuries. This would explain his seemingly impossible knowledge of hidden paths and secret locations. It would justify the trust multiple major figures place in him. They might have known previous iterations of his riders, understood his role in the greater pattern of history. Torrent becomes not just a mount, but a thread connecting disparate eras, a constant in a world of variables. The spirit calling. Bel's connection to Torrent's former master raises additional questions about the nature of spirit summoning itself. The bell allows you to call forth the spirits of the dead to fight alongside you, wolves, soldiers, legendary knights, and more. If Torrent's former master arranged for you to receive this bell, they understood you would need to command the dead, to bridge the gap between life and death, just as Torrent himself does. This suggests a master who understood death not as an ending, but as a transformation, someone who saw the spectral realm as a resource, rather than a fearsome unknown. Again, this points toward figures like Miquella, who sought to create new forms of life and order, or, potentially, the Gloam-Eyed Queen, who wielded death as a tool before Marika's age. The lone wolf ashes that often accompany the spirit-calling bell tell their own story. 3 wolves who refuse to separate even in death, loyalty that transcends mortality. It's a perfect parallel to Torrent's own nature. The statue depicting these wolves, possibly showing Miquella or another youthful figure, suggests a connection between youth, innocence, and the loyalty that survives death. There's deep irony in the fact that Torrent, a spectral being existing between life and death, is more reliable than most living characters in the game. NPCs betray you, lie to you, use you for their own ends. But Torrent remains constant, faithful regardless of your choices, except that one unforgivable path of total annihilation. His loyalty throws the faithlessness of the living into sharp relief. The mystery of Torrent's former master ultimately reflects the game's approach to storytelling through absence. Just as the Elden Ring itself is defined by what was removed, the Rune of Death, Torrent is defined by who is missing, his former master. This absence creates narrative space for player interpretation, for community discussion, for the kind of living mythology that keeps games alive long after their release. From Software understood that explicitly answering this question would diminish its power. If they simply stated, Miquella was Torrent's former master, it would become a fact to be catalogued rather than a mystery to be pondered. By leaving it open while providing tantalizing hints, they've created something far more valuable, a question that reveals new facets depending on how you approach it. Consider how your interpretation of Torrent's former master changes your entire playthrough. If you believe it was Miquella, every interaction with Melina, every piece of Erdtree lore, every mention of unalloyed gold gains additional weight. You're not just following in Miquella's footsteps. You're literally riding his horse, continuing his journey toward a compassionate order. If you subscribe to the Vyke theory, your path becomes a redemption of his failure. Where he chose personal love over cosmic duty, you must decide whether to make the same choice. The maiden at the Church of Inhibition becomes not just a piece of environmental storytelling, but a warning, a reminder of what happens when love and duty conflict. The Marika theory transforms the entire game into her elaborate escape plan. Every boss you defeat, every great rune you claim, every step toward the Erdtree serves her ultimate goal of liberation. You become her unwitting or willing agent, carrying out a plan conceived before you were even born. Riding the mount she prepared specifically for this purpose. These interpretations aren't mutually exclusive. Perhaps the truth encompasses elements of all theories. Miquella rode Torrent in the land of shadow, Vyke in the lands between, Marika before the shattering. Torrent could be a constant throughout the realm's history, choosing riders who represent hope for change, whether that change is Miquella's compassion, Vyke's love, or Marika's rebellion. The community continues to uncover new connections, small details that might illuminate this mystery. The spectral steed whistle's gold work might connect to the unalloyed gold of Miquella's needle. Torrent's horns might echo the twisted branches of the Erdtree. His spectral breath might mirror the ghost flame of destined death. Each discovery adds another piece to a puzzle that might never be complete, but grows more beautiful in its incompleteness. What does it mean that Shadow of the Erdtree, despite its promotional imagery, chose not to definitively answer this question? It suggests From Software views this mystery as essential to Elden Ring's identity. Like the best mythologies, Elden Ring thrives on questions that have multiple valid answers, mysteries that deepen rather than resolve with examination. The image of Miquella on Torrent becomes more powerful for its ambiguity. Is it historical fact, symbolic representation, prophetic vision, marketing manipulation, all of the above? The answer changes nothing and everything, depending on your perspective. It exists in a space between canon and speculation, official and interpretive, exactly where Torrent himself exists. Between life and death, physical and spectral. As we near the end of this journey through mystery and speculation, it's worth considering what Torrent himself might think of all this theorizing. Does he remember his former master? Does he see similarities between them and you? When he nuzzles your hand or responds to your call, is it because you remind him of someone lost, or because you represent something new, a fresh hope after old disappointments? The ending you choose might reflect what Torrent sees in you. The age of fracture continues the cycle, perhaps what his former master intended. The age of stars with Ranni breaks free entirely, validating the trust her connection to his former master implies. The age of order under Gold Mask perfects what was broken. Each ending except the Frenzied Flame honors some aspect of what Torrent's former master might have wanted. In this light, Torrent's refusal to serve a Lord of Frenzied Flame becomes even more significant. It's not just rejection, but betrayal of everything his former master stood for. Whether that master was Miquella's compassion, Vyke's love, or Marika's complex rebellion, none align with the pure nihilism of the Frenzied Flame. Torrent's absence in that ending is as powerful as his presence in all others. The lasting impact of this mystery extends beyond Elden Ring itself. It's become a touchstone for how modern games can create mythology, how unanswered questions can be more valuable than explicit lore. The community's ongoing investigation, the theories that build upon each other, the passionate debates about evidence and interpretation, all of it creates a living narrative that exists beyond the game's code. Years from now, when new players discover Elden Ring, they'll find not just a game, but an entire scholarly tradition built around mysteries like Torrent's former master. They'll read theories, watch videos, contribute their own interpretations to an ever-growing tapestry of speculation and analysis. The mystery becomes immortal, constantly renewed by fresh eyes and new perspectives. This is the true genius of From Software's approach. They've created not just lore, but meta-lore, stories about stories, mysteries that generate their own mythologies. Torrent's former master exists in a quantum state of all possibilities until observed, and From Software has chosen never to observe, to let the wave function remain uncollapsed, all possibilities equally true and untrue. So who was Torrent's former master? The answer is both simple and infinitely complex. They were someone who understood that the lands between would need a guide after catastrophe, someone who trusted in the judgment of a spectral steed over the dictates of gods and men. They were connected to Melina and Ranni, to the highest powers and the deepest mysteries. They rode Torrent through lands we've seen and realms we can only imagine. And when their time ended, through transformation, death, or ascension, they ensured Torrent would find another worthy of his loyalty. The promotional image of Miquella on Torrent might be the closest we ever get to an answer, a visual confirmation that refuses to explain itself. It hangs there like a painting in a gallery, inviting interpretation but never confirming any single reading. Is it history? Prophecy? Symbolism? The answer matters less than the questions it provokes, the discussions it generates, the community it helps create. As we reach the conclusion of this exploration, it's worth reflecting on what this mystery teaches us about storytelling in games. Not every question needs an answer. Not every mystery needs resolution. Sometimes the most powerful narratives are those that trust their audience to engage with ambiguity, to find meaning in uncertainty, to create their own truths from carefully placed hints and suggestions. Torrent gallops on, carrying you toward whatever ending you choose, faithful to the last, unless you choose the ending that would unmake everything, including him. His former master watches from absence, their identity a question that enriches rather than frustrates, a mystery that gives depth to every hoofbeat across the lands between. Thank you, fellow lore seekers, for joining me on this deep dive into one of Elden Ring's most enduring mysteries. The search for Torrent's former master reminds us that sometimes the journey of discovery matters more than the destination of answers. If this exploration has enriched your understanding of the lands between, please consider subscribing to the channel and joining our community of passionate investigators. Your support makes these comprehensive explorations possible, and your theories and insights in the comments below help build the collective understanding that makes Elden Ring's lore so endlessly fascinating. Until next time, keep questioning, keep theorizing, and remember, in the lands between, every mystery is an invitation to deeper understanding, and every unanswered question is a doorway to infinite possibilities.